Hello and welcome. In this video, I'm going to walk you through step by step how I was able to create this digital art with Photoshop, and we are starting right now. We're going to start by creating a Canva. In this case, I'm going to be using 1920 by 1080 pixels. Once you select your Canva, you're going to go ahead and create. The very first thing we need to do is to go ahead and bring in our background. In this case, it's going to be this image right here that's going to pop up in a second, and I will just go ahead and resize the image to fit our Canva just like this and hit on enter. And just to be organized, I will go ahead and rename my layer to background. And now what we need to do is to go ahead and bring in the image of our foreground. In this case, it's going to be this image right here. I will still go ahead and resize it just like this without holding down the shift button, and after that I'll hit on enter. And still, to be organized, I will still go ahead and name this to be foreground. And now that we have the two of our image, what I need to do is to select this foreground right here and add a layer mask. Once you have a layer mask, make sure you select the layer mask, hit on B from your keyboard to have the brush tool. I want to increase the size to like this point, and make sure the foreground color is set to black. What I need to do is to increase the opacity to like 100%, and the flow should be 20 something. And let's try if it's going to work. Okay, I can still increase the size a little bit to like this point and erase this part. The same thing is going to apply to this part. Erase this part right here, something like this. And now I want to go ahead and decrease the opacity of my brush to be like 30 something, and I just want to blend this foreground to the background just like this. And what I can possibly do again is to select the move tool by hitting on V and select this foreground. Hold down the control button or command and just try to flatten our foreground this manner to something of this point and hit on enter. And now I can still go ahead again and select the layer mask, hit on B to have my brush tool and just blend it more to the back. Okay, something like this is nice. We can work with this. And there are some line here. I can still go ahead and remove this sharp line, increase my opacity, and just remove these sharp edges, this point. Okay, we can work with something like this. And now select your move tool. The first thing I will need to bring is going to be the main house. In this case, it's going to be this house. Hit on enter and select the quick selection tool. Come over to select subject, wait for some seconds for Photoshop to select the object, and you can see this part is not selected. Just drag over it like this and it's going to be selected. This part we need it, and this part as well. Once everything is been selected, I'll just go over to the layer mask and mask it out. And now selecting my move tool, I'll just try to place this house in a place that it can fit, and somewhere here is going to make sense. I can still go again and select this foreground, hold down the control and try to flatten it a little bit to something like this and hit on enter. And now our house is perfectly placed. The next thing I can do is to come over to the properties of this house, but before then I need to go ahead and rename the house. Now come over to the property panel and I want to come over to the smart radius and increase the radius to something like 5 pixels. Enter just to remove the whitish parts. Now it's okay like this. The next thing I can potentially do is to go ahead and bring in the pathway. In this case, it's going to be this image right here. Go ahead and hit on enter, select the quick selection tool and ask Photoshop to select the subject. Wait for some seconds, and once it's been selected, go ahead and mask it out in this manner. Select your move tool, and what I need to do first is to hold down the control button and try to flatten this pathway this way, just something of this nature. Like this is perfectly fine. And what I can do, I want this pathway to be below this house, and before then I will still need to go ahead and rename it to be pathway. Now I'll move it below the house. Something of this nature is okay, and you can just drag it to fit at the midpoint like this. Ctrl+0 to have the big screen. And what I can do right now is to select this house, this only house, select the layer mask, press B on your keyboard to have the brush tool and decrease the size just like this. And now I want to go ahead, and the opacity is 100% and the flow is 28. Let's work with this. It's too harsh. Ctrl+Z. I want to decrease the opacity to be like 60 something percent, and I want to blend this woundy house to the foreground just like this. Okay, and the same thing is going to apply here, and this point as well. I want to hit on Z to zoom in, and then take my brush tool again and decrease the size a little bit. I just want to blend only these parts of the path wheel to the door of the house in this manner. And then I can increase my brush tool right now and blend house to the foreground again in this manner. Okay, Ctrl+1 to zoom out, and something like this is already okay. Now what I can do is to hit on this foreground to select this foreground, and then come back to the adjustment layer and select hue and saturation. Make sure you clip it to the foreground, and I want to desaturate the foreground to something of this point. Okay, and as well reduce some of the lightness just like this, and the same thing is going to apply to the main background. Over to the adjustment layer and select hue and saturation, clip it to the background, desaturate the background color to make it match the foreground color to something of this point, and as well decrease the lightness. I'm still going to select the woundy house and come over to the adjustment, hue and saturation, clip it to the house, desaturate the woundy house to something of this nature, and as well reduce the lightness. And still even desaturate it like this. And as well, I want to click on this path wheel, adjustment, hue and saturation, clip it to the path wheel and desaturate the path wheel to something this point as well, and then reduce the lightness to something like this. Okay, something like this. Okay, it's perfectly fine like this. Now what I can do is to select this path wheel and select the layer mask, hit on B from my keyboard to have the brush tool, and just increase the size a little bit. Ctrl+0 to have the big screen. Now I can decrease the size. I just want to blend part of this path wheel to the foreground of this man. Okay, just remove the sharp edges. Just want to blend it like this. Okay, and as well this part into this path wheel. Okay, okay, something like this is perfectly fine. Perfect. Ctrl+1 to zoom out. Okay, it's okay. And right now I want to go ahead and select this woundy house. Come back to the adjustment as well and select level. It's already clipped. If not, make sure you clip it to the house. I want to add contrast to this point, and at the same time reduce some of the highlights in this manner. Okay, something like this perfectly fine. And now what I can do is to go ahead and bring in this moon that is going to be the main source of our light. Hit on enter and come back to the quick selection tool, select the subject, wait for some seconds, and then you want to come back to the layer mask and mask it out in this way. Now I want to select the layer mask, but before then I will need to go ahead and rename the layer just to be organized. Now select the layer mask, hit on B, or you can as well right click, because in this case we are going to be using the hard round brush. Once you have the brush, you want to go ahead and resize it to this manner. Ctrl+0 again to have big screen, and I want to remove some of these parts right here. It's not sharp enough. I want to increase the opacity to be 100% and as well the flow to be 100%. And now I just want the sharp edges. I want the edges to be very sharp, so I'm going to be using hard round brush. Just remove it in this manner to make a sharp edge, sharp end. Okay, to something of this point, and here I just want to remove that part in this way, and come over here as well and do the same. Okay, two more. Okay, something of this nature is good, and I can hit on Ctrl+1, take my move tool and hold down the shift to resize the moon, and then I want to place it somewhere here. Still go ahead and decrease the size, and I want to place it somewhere here just like this, and hit on enter. The next thing I can do right now is to go ahead and bring in these birds, this flux of birds, and hit on enter. Firstly, I want to come back to the blending mode and select darken. Once I select the darken, I want to take my move tool and try to resize the flocking birds this way. Place it somewhere here between the moon and resize it as well. Hit on enter and press on Ctrl+G, Command+J to duplicate the layer, and this time around I want to move this part. I want to move the second layer to this point and decrease it as well, something of this nature. Okay, like this. Okay, I'll hit on enter, and now I want to select this first flux of bird and rename the layer to birds. And this one as well, I still need to rename it to birds copy and hit on enter. Now this very first one, I want to select it and then increase the opacity to make it be as if they are inside the cloud, so something of this nature. And as well, select this other part, increase the opacity to make them be in the cloud, but something of this nature. Okay, now it's good. It's like we mix something somewhere, and that is the reason why this one just pop up. This house right here. Okay, is this moon? This moon shouldn't be here. We need to move it up. We need to be on it or layer, just like this. Okay, now we are in line. We can still go ahead and touch this out. This hue and saturation was not clipped, and now I can go ahead and clip it. Okay, now we are back to where we stopped. Select this hue again for the house, and I want to desaturate the house the more to something of this nature. Okay, like this we are very much in line. I can still go ahead and increase the size of this our moon, our source of light, to like this, and hit on enter. Now what I need to do is to go ahead and bring in the protagonist. In this case it's going to be this bat right here. I want to go ahead and enter, hold down the shift key, and I want to resize the protagonist, the bats, to this point, and try to add it, try to place it somewhere that is going to fit. Maybe somewhere here is going to make sense. And I can still even go ahead and decrease the size a little bit and make it to fit somewhere here, just like this, and hit on enter. And again, I want to go ahead and bring in the antagonist. In this case, it's going to be this ninja that is sitting waiting for this bat to attack so that it can strike through. I want to go ahead and resize the ninja that is kneeling down on the pathway. In this case, we're going to place it like this. It's waiting for the bat to attack so that he can strike through. I want to select the ninja and rename it just to be organized, and as well rename the bat, the protagonist, just to be organized. Now I want to select the ninja and come back to adjustment layer, hue and saturation. Clip it to the ninja, and I want to desaturate it just as we did with other layer in this manner. Okay, something like this is fine. And now what we can do is to create a shadow of this ninja right here, because this light is going to be reflecting in this wheel. You check it here, you're going to see the light is reflecting to this wheel, so we need the shadow. And in this case, I'm going to come here, select this ninja, hit on Ctrl plus J to duplicate the layer in this wheel, and now move this copy of the layer below the main ninja to your point, and make sure you clipped this hue saturation adjust layer that was unclipped. Make sure you clip it this time around and click between the line just like this. Okay, and this is the main copy that we just created. What I need to do right now is to hold down my control key, and you want to try to bring in the other layer that you just duplicated this man, just like this. Once you have it like this, you want to hit on enter, Ctrl plus 0 to have the B screen, and make sure the shadow should be touching the main ninja in this way. It's like it's too much, hit on Z, zoom in. Okay, hold down the space bar to navigate, and take your move tool by pressing on V, and now just right place it in between the line, something like this. Okay, Ctrl plus 1 and hit on enter. Now what we can possibly do is to select this shadow and come back to filter. So here I want to come back to blue and select the Gaussian blue. You can increase the size to like 6 pixels and hit on OK. And the same thing, you want to come back to the opacity and decrease the opacity of the shadow to something like 49 or even 50. Something like this. Okay, the design is coming out little by little. And the next thing we can do again is to select this ninja as well. Hit on Ctrl plus 0 to have the big screen, and hit on Z from your keyboard so that you can zoom in photo more. And now I want to go ahead and select the lasso tool, and what I'm going to do right now is to select this word. Okay, this manner you can even use the pen tool or any of the tool you feel comfortable with, and draw it to something like this, and then close this word in this manner. What I can do right now, go ahead and right click and come back to layer via copy. It's going to be this, and right now I want to go ahead and rename this word just to be organized. Ctrl plus 1 to zoom out. Now this is this word. Even if the ninja is not present, this word is still going to be there. The next thing I can potentially do is to select the first layer, and I want to go over to the adjustment layer and select level. This time around we don't need to clip it, and what I need to do is to go ahead and add some contrast to our design in this manner. and at the same time add some shadows in this manner, okay, to something like this. And as well, repeat the same thing, add some contrast more to like this. And once you are here, you want to come out to the layer mask and hit on Ctrl+1 to invert the selection. Take your brush tool, and this time around is going to be the soft round brush. Once you have the brush tool, you want to go ahead and resize your brush to this point, and I can go ahead and decrease the opacity of my brush to be something 8, and the flow as well should be like 50 something. And I want to add some shadow here. It's not showing up. I need to change my color, my foreground color, from black to white. Okay, and let's try this time around. It's working. So I need to add some shadows to this part. Since our source of light is here, this house is going to be blocking this part, so the moon will not be touching this part right here. For that, we need to add some shadows and some part of the house as well, okay, and this part as well. And I want to go ahead and select this ninja, hide it from now, and again you come back to this level, taking my brush tool and add some of the shadows to this point. Okay, this light is not going to meet in here, it's not going to here as well. Okay, so something like this. The light is not in this part as well. Take my move tool, I can bring in this ninja again. Okay, at this point what we need to do is to come back to the first layer. You want to come back to the adjustment layer and select color lookup. So there you want to come back to load 3D load and come back to moonlight. You're going to have this effect, and what we need to do is to go back to the adjustment layer again and select levels. This time around I want to add some highlights to this design in this wheel, and at the same time add some contrast, just like this, something that is not too much, and add some highlights as well. Okay, something like this. Okay, and add some contrast to darken the black part in this wheel. Okay, the light is not going to be meeting here, and the light is already touching this part. Perfect. What I can do right now is to come back to this moon and select this moon. Okay, and once I'm here, I want to come back to adjustment layer and select exposure. Make sure you clip it to the moon so that we will not distort our design, and increase the exposure of this moon to something of this point. Once you have it like this, now we need to go into the next step of this video, and the next step is going to be the effect. This is going to be the main design, and now we need to add the effect and the lights. We're going to start with this bat right here. I'll just go ahead and select this bat, okay, or moreover you can just come over to the first layer and create a new layer at the top. Once you have a new layer, make sure you select your foreground color to be red, hit on OK, hit on B to have the brush tool, and make sure it's the soft round brush. Now I want to decrease the size of the brush and hit on Ctrl+0 to have the big screen, hit on Z as well to resize it, hold it down the space bar just to move things around. And now I want to take my brush tool again by hitting on B and decrease the size as well to something of this point. Okay, and make sure the opacity is 100% and the flow as well is 100%. I want to go ahead and just click once, Ctrl+1 again to zoom out. Now we're done with that. The next thing we can potentially do is to come back to these windows. We need to lighten it up to be as if there is light inside the house. Okay, and to do that I want to hit on Ctrl+0 first and hit on P for my keyboard. Now I need to use the pen tool. You can use any one of your choice, maybe the lasso tool, but in this case I'm going to be using the pen tool since it's going to be more accurate. And make sure you are on the part and on the shape. Okay, I want to start here, click here, just draw a rectangle in the window in this manner. Okay, something like this. Okay, and come back to this window as well till come back to this point, and that one here, come back to here, that point, and this stick we just need to walk over it in this wheel like this. Close the window like this. Okay, I want to come here, well, just as we did before, walk around this stick. You want, we can even remove the stick, but that's gonna be for another day. Let's do it this wheel and close the part just like this. So this one is not straight. You can close the part and try to rotate it maybe in this manner. Okay, once you have it like this, what we can potentially do is to hold down your control or your command from your keyboard and draw this rectangle or square above this line that you just drew. And this way is going to select everything. Right click and make selection. Now it's going to select all the windows at once so that we won't be wasting our times in doing it one by one. And now what I can potentially do is to come back to the adjustment and select hue and saturation. Okay, make sure it's colorized. Once it's colorized, you can see the window is popping up already. And I want to increase the saturation point and increase the lightness as well. The color I need is going to be something of maybe green or this hot yellow right here. Like this is going to be okay. And now what I can potentially do just to increase the lightness of this window is to come out to this hue saturation, double click on it to have the layer style, and I want to come back to the attack glow. If you hit on the attack glow, now the window is going to be as if it's lighting out. Okay, you can make some adjustment here. Now it's on linear dodge. You can even make it to be color dodge. And it's going to reduce, and if you make it normal as well, it's going to be something of this nature. But let's assume we are going to be using linear dodge in this manner. Decrease the spread and maybe increase the size of this picture. Something like this is going to be okay. And I want to go ahead and hit enter, Ctrl+1 to zoom out. Okay, now we have our window reflecting out already. Right now I need to go ahead and bring in this fire that is burning on this part right here. Firstly, I want to go ahead and hit on enter, take your move tool and decrease the size of the fire nature. I want to place it somewhere here. And to remove the background, I want to come back to the blending mode first and choose screen. Okay, and to remove this line, what I can potentially do is to first rename this layer to be fire. Once be renamed like this, I want to come back to the adjustment layer and select levels. I want to clip it fire and add some contrast. In this way, it's going to remove those lines. You can see it has disappeared. It's going to be something like this. And I want to take my move tool as well and decrease the size of this fire, okay, to something of this nature. And I want to place it somewhere between here. I can still decrease the size a little bit. And what I can do right now is to press on Ctrl+0 to have the big screen. And selecting this fire as well, I want to add a layer mask. Select the layer mask and hit on B to have your brush tool. Make sure it's soft round brush. And I want to increase the size of my brush to something at this point, to something like this. And make sure I decrease the opacity and the flow of my brush. Firstly, I want to remove these parts. Make sure the foreground color is set to black because we are going to be removing some parts. And I want to remove this point. And just try to blend the fire to the foreground this way. Just try to blend the fire to the foreground to something like this. Okay, since we have this fire as well, even if it's not going to be our main source of light, we are using this moon as our main source of light. This fire needs some reflection on the foreground and parts of this wall and some parts maybe to this point, and we are not going to be touching the hair, but we're going to add some light at least to this point and this point and this point as well. And in order for us to have that type of effect, what I need to do is to come back to the first layer, and I want to go ahead and select a solid color. I want to go ahead and select something like yellow this time around, this yellow, and hit on OK. Selecting the layer mask, I want to hit on Ctrl+I to invert the selection. Or as well, I can redo the work, decrease the opacity of the solid color like this. Something like this, okay. And now I can go ahead and hit on Ctrl+I to invert the selection. Hit on B to have my brush tool, increase the size. First, let's paint to say, make sure you change the foreground color to white since we are going to be painting. And let's paint some light here. If the color is not matching up, you can double click on this. Hit on Z to undo your work. Double click on this. And now select this color, not the white, the yellow part. And hit on. Let's try this. Hit on B and select the layer mask. Okay, something like this, small scale. I want to add the light here, point, parts of this house right here. Okay, this point here as well. Increase my brush size, and I want to add to this point. It's touching this part house, but not the mountain. Ctrl+Z. I work this part of this house. Just want to make the fire to be everywhere. So something of that. I can decrease brush size and maybe add some of the light here. What I can do right now is to decrease the opacity of my brush, then increase the size of my brush as well. Can even decrease the flow and set the foreground color to something like black again, and just try muting some of parts. Remove some of the light here, the sharp edges of the light. Something like this. Okay, change the foreground color and just add some of the lights like this. Okay, now this is perfectly fine. Okay, and what I can do right now is to come over to this bat and select this bat. Since our light is coming here, obviously it's going to be meeting this part, the head, and maybe some of this part, but the other part of the hand need to be darkened. And the only way we can achieve this result is to select the bat. And what I need to do right now is to come back to adjustment layer and come back to exposure. Once you have the exposure, make sure you clip it to the bat. Right now I want to increase the exposure to something like this. Okay, this one is already helping us with the light, to something like this. And what I can do right now is to select the exposure as well. Select the foreground color to be black in this case. Take my brush tool by hitting on B, increase the size, and let's start with 28 opacity and 35 flow. It's not sharp enough. I can go ahead and increase the opacity to be like 40 something. Okay, and now let's paint over here. Still not sharp enough. Still go ahead, increase it to be like 70 something, and let's paint on this other hand right. Let's try 100. Okay, and let's make the flow as well to be 100. Let's paint here. You can still go ahead and add another adjustment. In this case, we are going to be using levels. Make sure it's clipped to the bat. I want to add some contrast to the bat, some contrast well, and as well add the mid-tone contrast well. And now I need to select the layer mask and hit on Ctrl plus I to invert the selection. I want to take my brush tool and maybe test the 100. The foreground color should be white because we are painting. Okay, I want to darken this part since the light is not going to be meeting. This other hand can be brightened, and this one need to be dark. This is the result we want to achieve. And right now, we still need to go ahead again to the same bat and select adjust, come over to exposure, and want to increase. Make sure you clip it, if not you're going to destroy everything. The exposure to something like this. You can see right now the exposure, even if we are increasing the exposure, this part is not increasing, it's still darkening. And I want to go ahead and hit on Ctrl plus I and just try to hit on Z to zoom in. Hold it down the space bar, try to move it around. Hit on B again to have my brush tool and decrease the size to this point. Okay, now let's add more light. The light is obviously going to be touching here. This ear is going to be touching it, and this part is going to be touching it as well. Okay, and there is going to be meeting the head. This part of the ear is going to be meeting it obviously, and as well this part right here, and I think as well this leg. Okay, this part now light is not going to be meeting here. Just make the light like that. Decrease my brush size and be as if the light is hitting the other edges. Okay, Ctrl plus 1 to zoom out. Okay, the light is having a great reflection on this one right here. And now let's come over to this house. Select this house. Once you select this house, firstly I want to go ahead and add the exposure adjust as well, and make sure it's clipped to the house. I want to increase the exposure of the house to be this point or something like this. And at the same time I want to hit on Ctrl plus I to invert the color. Take my brush tool, Ctrl plus 0, hit on Z as well, increase the size, hold it down the space bar, move things around, hit on B again to have my brush tool and decrease the size a little bit. Now the light is going to be meeting here. Let the exposure, the light is going to be meeting here. Okay, it's going to be meeting this part now, and it's going to be meeting this part as well. It's going to be meeting these edges. Okay, going to these edges to this point, these edges, and this back edge as well. It's going to be meeting there, but these other parts is going to be meeting there to this point. Here it's not going here, and it's going to be touching these parts as well. And this part now is going to be touching some of this part right here, touching here, and these edges. It's not going to be here. That is the main reason why this part is very dark here, and maybe to this point as well. It's going to be touching there and this place as well. Ctrl plus 1 to zoom out, and now I can change the foreground color to be black and try to increase the size of my brush and decrease maybe the opacity to blend the house, and maybe change the opacity and the flow just to blend the light to something of this nature. Now what we need to do is to add some light as well to this man. Hit on V to have your move tool and select this ninja. This is the ninja right here. What I need to do right now is to hit on Ctrl+0, hit on Z as well, increase the size. Selecting the ninja, make sure it's not the copying but the main ninja. I want to come out to the adjust well, come out to exposure, make sure it's clipped to the man, and I want to increase the exposure like this, and still go ahead and invert the color by pressing Ctrl+I. Select my brush tool. Since we are going to be coloring and not cancelling, I'm going to be using white. Decrease the size of my brush as well, something like this. And we need to go ahead and make the opacity to be 100% and the flow as well to be 100%. So go ahead and add some light here. Light is obviously going to meet here. Ctrl Z is going to be meet Ctrl Z as well, this manner, okay? And it's going to be meeting the slab. It's going to be meeting here and here as well. Back side now. This part as well. Ctrl Z. It's going to be touching this side, and this side as well. Something like this. Signs. Okay, lab Ctrl+1 to zoom out. Okay, just some reflection of the light since it's wearing black. And now what we can do again is to hit on the move tool and select this sword right here. Select the ninja and select this sword right here. What I can do is to double click on this layer of the sword to add the layer style, and I want to come out to attack glow just to give the sword that light effect, but it don't need to be yellow. In this case, it needs to be the same color of maybe the moon, like this. And you can still go ahead and even increase the size and spread it a little bit. Okay, to add that kind of effect, the sword is ready to pierce through this bat. Something like this is pretty okay, and you can go ahead, it's on okay. The shadow is already on the ground. Now once we have our design like this, we need to go ahead and beautify the design. Doing that, you want to select the very first layer and hit on Ctrl Shift Alt or Option and press the letter E to have everything on a single layer. Right click and make that same layer to smart object. Now you want to come out to filter and come out to camera raw filter. Go by this to have the before and the after, and want to start with the exposure. You can give it just little, and the contrast, we need more of contrast in this our design, okay, something like this. And the highlights, we can as well increase the highlights to something like positive 26, and the shadows, I can go ahead and decrease the shadow to negative. I don't need the white, and the black as well should be negative, something of point. And come back to color. This here is going to be beautified, and I need that hot color. In this case, I'm going to make it more yellow and more green, something like this, to have that type of cinematic view, something like this. Make it more green. Okay, and now the vibrance, I don't need the vibrance. I need to come out to the effects and increase the texture, and as well increase the clarity. I just need something like this. The color is already be different from this to this. I prefer this that looks a little bit cinematic, and add some vignettes as well. Okay, I love the way this fire is reflecting all this part right here. There is no light here, that type of vignettes. Okay, I don't need the curve. Let me go to the color mixer. No, I don't even need the color mixer. Let me go to the details and increase just only the sharpness. Okay, something like this. Very okay. This is the before, this is the after. I can go ahead and hit okay. We're gonna have something just like this guy. Wow, this one right here was the one that I created on my own, and for this video we created something like this. That was the same thing. I don't think if there is any different. This one looks a little bit sharp. I prefer this because I wanted these birds to be in cloud. Here I don't know why they pop up, but here they are inside the cloud. I prefer this. If you learned something from this video, don't forget to subscribe to this channel so that whenever I upload a new video just like this, you will always be the first person to be notified. And I hope you learned something from this video. And having said this, I'm going to see you in the next video that is going to pop up here. Cheers. Peace out.